videoprogramazione.
Non so, adesso non so se...
Hello?
Hi, welcome everybody. It's really great to have you all here with us today. I'm excited to be here with a lot of wonderful colleagues and panelists that I will introduce for a second. But before I do that, a couple of housekeeping elements, like you have seen in the video that we just shared. If you we cannot hear you, we cannot see you, we know that you're here and really appreciate your presence with us. But if you want to communicate with us or ask questions, please use the Q&A feature, and we will be putting in the chat in a moment also the instructions on how to activate the interpretation and translation channels. In fact, we are doing it right now. So hopefully everybody who speaks Spanish or Portuguese will be able to hear us as well. And so to start us, hi everyone, welcome again to everybody who is joining. My name is Chiara Benetolo. I am the Executive Director of the Puttkammer Center for Educational Justice at the Petey Greene program. The Petey Greene program is a national nonprofit organization that offers individualized educational support services for students who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated across the US, with a focus right now on the East Coast, but we're also expanding very, very quickly. So we do tutoring, college readiness, career and workforce development support, digital literacy, really all the services that you need in order to achieve and work towards your educational and career goals, with the vision that really the best services are individualized services. We have a great number of tutors, many of whom I know are here in the chat and in the audience, and volunteers of all sorts that meet with students individually on a weekly basis, really meeting them where they are and supporting them towards their goal. The Puttkammer Center for Educational Justice is the Petey Greene Program's Research and Strategy Division. So we conduct research and pilot programs, really combining scholarship and practice with the goal to identify, test, and then disseminate promising models in prison education, with a focus again on this holistic approach to students. And for this series, I'm really excited to partner with Incarceration Nations and their Global Freedom Fellowship, which is an initiative that supports leaders, activists in prison reform and abolition across the world. Finally, excited to have here the real protagonists of this conversation, who are our panelists coming from Brazil, the Czech Republic, and South Africa. I will ask them to introduce themselves in a moment, and they will be talking with me and with us about the landscape of reentry and reintegration from a global perspective. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your stories. Where did you start? What are you doing now? What keeps you going and what keeps you up at night? Indira, maybe you could go first.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Yes, I'm Dimpiwe Nyagati. You can call me Ndira. I'm from South Africa. I'm formerly incarcerated myself, spent 13 years in prison. Upon being released, first of all, while I was still inside, I was part of the educational programs where I was able to acquire some university qualifications, which is a diploma and a degree in community development. Upon my release, with the struggles of being reintegrated, I've joined an organization called the Message Trust, where I started trainings there as a barista. And then I was appointed as a reintegration officer, where I was working in the space of reintegration. We were doing trainings, and also we were running a coffee shop and a house, which the house was housing people that comes out of prison as well. Currently, I've been a consultant at a Philippi Village. Firstly, I was a visionary in residency at Philippi Village. Then I was hired to be as a consultant, helping them to come up with programs, also trying to make the space inclusive of everyone, including people that comes out of incarceration. Yeah, currently I'm also an activist in the community. I'm much involved in community programs currently, and also trying my best to see that my brothers and sisters who come home are also part of the organizations that are working in the communities around Cape Town. Yes, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story. And I have to say that I love the title Visionary in Residence. That is probably the best job title I have ever heard. And also more seriously, your focus on making sure that the community and the people who are formerly incarcerated are protagonists in implementing programs, creating services, creating models for others who are coming home. And before we pass it on to the other panelists, could you, since you mentioned the Philippi village, can you share in a couple of words just what it is for people who are not familiar with that or with Cape Town?
Okay. Philippi Village is a business hub and a community center as well in the same breath, where they host small businesses within the precinct. It's a beautiful space with art and everything. So it's also housed the community center side where they also have programs that they are running, the after school program, also sports, different sporting programs that they have. Yeah, that's the space. Yeah.
Wonderful. It sounds like a great model and a great model of the integration of different services and businesses. Yeah. Wonderful. John, could you bring us in the Czech Republic?
Okay, the pronunciation is Jan, not Jan, but
Thank you.
No problem. So hello to everybody. I'm Jan. I'm from Czech Republic. I've been also formerly incarcerated. I was sent to jail for drug dealing. I was also drug addicted for more than 10 years. I work now at the NGO in Czech Republic called Rubicon Centrum. I work there now for almost 3 years. Now mainly I'm focused on our housing program. In my company, I'm also part of the Rescale program, which is European program for detention houses and small-scale prisons. Because I believe in that, because I also ran through such a program when I was incarcerated. Yeah, I'm also Global Freedom Fellow from 2023, and I'm happy that to see my other fellows here today on the screen, especially big hi to Brazil, to my friend Rodrigo, and also to other comrades. Yeah, then that's all about me, I guess, at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And we'll be diving much deeper into your work and the work that Rubicon does in a second. But before that, let's hear from Brazil and from Rodrigo through his interpreter, Giovanna, who kindly will translate for us. So, Rodrigo, if you can introduce yourself, share a bit about your story and what are you doing.
Olá a todos. Então, eu sou Rodrigo Sabiá. Estou muito feliz de poder estar aqui compartilhando um pouco da minha história, da minha experiência, também de ouvir esses amigos aí que tive o privilégio de poder ouvir um pouco mais sobre o trabalho deles, sobre a história deles, sobre quanto eles têm feito em cada um de seus respectivos países, né? E isso me ajudou muito para que eu pudesse desenvolver e, e levar adiante o trabalho que eu venho fazendo aqui no Brasil. Eu sou um egresso sem prisional, passei por esse durante 6 anos por dentro do sistema prisional, tanto o regime que eu passei no sistema fechado aqui no Brasil e no semiaberto. E desde quando eu saí, eu venho trabalhando muito mais a questão do egresso, né? Eu venho trabalhando dentro das penitenciárias, com foros sobre a minha história de vida, mas tenho focado muito na questão do egresso, na oportunidade, quando esses caras saem, questão de trabalho, estudo e oportunidades para que eles possam retomar a sua vida longe do mundo do crime e ocupar espaços dentro da nossa sociedade. É um trabalho muito difícil, né? Porque existe um preconceito muito grande para quem sai de dentro do sistema penitenciário e as pessoas não querem dar oportunidade para essas pessoas, para os egressos. Esse ano nós estamos inaugurando o nosso escritório aqui em Porto Alegre. para trabalhar com egressos, trabalhar questão social, questão psicológica e judicial, para que nós possamos encaminhar essas pessoas para o mercado de trabalho e que nós possamos dar esse acompanhamento e esse suporte, tanto para o egresso que está indo para o mercado de trabalho, quanto para os nossos parceiros, as empresas, os empresários, que estão dando oportunidade para essas pessoas.
Thank you so much. It was great to hear your story as well. Thank you, Giovanna, for translating for us. And I'm interested in hearing a lot of commonalities between the works that you all are doing across different countries, and also the struggles that you all mentioned, the many barriers that we see in reentry and reintegration. So we will talk about those struggles and those and all this amazing work in a second. Before we do that, I'm going to ask MT, who is here also as a co-facilitator, to introduce himself and just say a couple of words, because I know you're not necessarily one of the panelists, but you're doing a lot of great work as well. So
thank you, Kiara, for that, and greetings to our audience today. My name is Mteteli Mcebisi Mweke. I'm known as MT. I am from South Africa. I'm a team leader for the Incarceration Nations Network and a Global Freedom Fellowship project coordinator. So a Global Freedom Fellowship, it's a fellowship that brings leaders from around the world who are doing work of impact in their countries as a way of learning and collaborating with each other, from one country to another country. And the Incarceration Nations Network, which is the umbrella, oversees most of the work that I'm doing here in South Africa. It's an organization that is focusing on a systematic change, how we change policies, how we can place opportunities to people who once never had them, and how we can promote education. We are very big on education, of which Indira mentioned it earlier on, of which Rodrigo and Jan were part of the Global Freedom Fellowship. So yeah, I am here. I once worked at the message when Indira was talking about, and the housing has been a problem. And we've seen most of the guys going back to prison because of that one particular thing. So this is a conversation or a topic that is very close at heart with me. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you to you, Kiara, and thank you to our audience for being here today.
thank you. And yeah, let's start talking about some of those barriers. You mentioned housing, but I would love to hear more about what are some of the common barriers that you see in your work in supporting people. What's preventing people from being successful in their reentry journey?
I'll jump in. One that comes into mind is the housing. The housing element, which is a big issue, because some of the people inside, they can't even get the parole to come out because of they don't have anywhere to go. In Cape Town, currently, we had a problem of people who are living on the street. And the majority of those people that were living in the street it's people that have a record. So it's people that came from prison. Another thing that we have, especially here in South Africa, will be the stigma, which goes hand in hand with lack of opportunities for people with record, where there will be a lack of support. Also, there will be a lack of hunger for people that are running businesses to hire people with record as well. So those are the two main issues that we currently facing this side of the world.
Yeah. Thank you. And both issues are, as you mentioned, have both an immediate repercussions when people are coming out, but also very long-term consequences. At least that's what we're seeing in the US. Both the stigma and the housing crisis can continue to be obstacles for people even many years after they are released. And I think there's a clear connection with among them, with landlords not being willing to rent, or with to people who have a record, no matter how many years ago that record was for, and what were they incarcerated for.
Yeah.
I can just, if I can, yes, Ndira, can speak.
Just talking from the experience of what you've just said now, where you will find guys who have progressed in their careers, but there are certain areas that they can't even get a house to rent, or anyway, they are stuck to places where they sometimes they want to get out of, in terms of they don't go back to crime, or they don't go back to the same society where they committed the same criminal offenses or they grew up in. So we still have the same problem that we need now to advocate for. We've been trying to work with those in authorities to say, you have a person that have proven himself. He's been out of incarceration for over 10 years. And he's been doing great in terms of the career path, but he can't progress in terms of the housing and go and buy a house in a fancy area because of he's got a record. Yeah. Show empty.
So yeah, I wanted to add on what Ndira is saying, as somebody who is in prison, when they're about to get out, there's always three things that comes into their heads. The first one is a society that is going to accept him, irrespective of his past. And then the second thing is a housing. And the third one, it will be a job that he can be able to provide. But it's always those kind of challenges that somebody who's in prison are faced with. When I was released in prison in 2016, if it was not for the help of a halfway house, I think that I would have defaulted back into crime again, because I need to survive. But because I had a roof over my head, then I was able to think now where I can find a job. And then when I find a job, then I was able now to plan my life in terms of growth. But you remove a roof over the head of somebody, and you remove a proper job, then you are bringing that person back and to find ways of how he can survive, or how he can make his economical survive for himself. So those are the things. So having the house that can be able to house an individual that is coming out of prison, it helps also as a way of breaking that recidivism rate. Prison is no longer becoming a revolving door; it ends. So that's what I wanted just to add on what Ndira has already said.
Thank you. And Jan, did you
Yep.
want to add
Thank you.
anything?
I have to completely agree with Ndira and MT about housing. That's a really big issue, also in Europe, especially in Czech Republic. And I'm very glad that my organization, we run a program which is funded by the social funds here in Czech Republic. The program's called, if I translate it, Chance for Living. And based on that program, that people directly from prison going to flat that we prepare for them. We got those flats from municipalities, from city parks. It's not like big flats, but really basic basic furniture and etc. And so, and I have 8 clients now, which are living here in Prague. actually, I have to say, not always it stops the crime, because sometimes it's the first time forever that these individuals are having a flat or living in a flat like normal people. So sometimes it's tough. So sometimes they need really not just two chances, but three, four, even five, that they finally start how to live like a proper neighbor. So yeah, housing, it's also in Europe, it's also a big problem. And I also have to agree completely with MT what he just said, that also I was also the lucky one that after I was released, I was able, I have to I had to place to sleep because I was living with my mother. And also the stigma, it's sometimes been tough, but I could not find a job with the criminal record. So that's also what our organization is doing currently. But I guess we will get through it later on.
Yeah. Thank you. And absolutely, I'm hearing another thread through everything that you're saying, like the importance of housing, but also the importance of community and people that are there to support you. Before passing it on to Rodrigo, I want to mention a quote from one of the people served by your organization, Jan, that I just found on your website, from Michal, assuming I'm pronouncing the name correctly, saying, I feel as if my past crimes send out a mile, so everyone can see it. Like we were saying, right? This prominence of just one element of someone's life that keeps going after them for a long time. I did drugs and robberies. I was so irresponsible. I don't want to be like that anymore. I've changed. And yet others still look down their noses at me. I'm so glad my family and girlfriend support me no matter what. That is so crucial. So I think this quote really struck me because we see again both the long-term consequences of stigma and social exclusion, but also we start seeing some of the potential, I don't want to call them solutions, but factors that can support a successful reentry. That is not just made of those material things, but it's also made of community and people who are in your corner. So I want to pass it on to Rodrigo before we can maybe we can continue talking about solutions and things that do work in those cases. But Rodrigo, back to you for the challenges.
Enfim, nós nos preocupamos muito com a questão da empregabilidade, né? E antes de eu iniciar o trabalho com a minha organização, eu consegui muitos empregos para muitas pessoas que passaram pelo sistema prisional. E desses muitos que nós conseguimos encaixar no mercado de trabalho, dar oportunidade de emprego, a gente começou a ver que muitos não tinham continuidade. Alguns se perdiam para as drogas, outros iam um certo tempo trabalhar e acabavam não voltando mais. E foi aí que nós começamos a pensar na questão psicológica dessas pessoas, né? Porque muitos a gente, tipo, não adianta a gente encaminhar para a vaga de emprego sem entender como está a situação psicológica daquele rapaz que está saindo dentro do sistema prisional, que tem toda uma situação de infância, adolescência, que levou para o mundo do crime, que levou para as drogas. Então, a importância de nós termos um profissional que converse, que escute essa pessoa, que entenda as demandas e a situação que ele passa todos os dias, que ele passou dentro do sistema prisional. Um assistente social, um profissional que trabalha na área social, para entender, às vezes, esse cara quer contato e precisa do contato, do acesso à família, que muitas vezes não quer receber essa pessoa, que teve situações que machucaram tanto um quanto o outro, e às vezes não tem um calçado, não tem uma passagem, não tem uma alimentação decente, ou às vezes não tem nem onde morar. Então é importante a gente entendeu que é importante ter alguém que trabalhe, um profissional da área social, para ouvir as demandas e a situação dessa pessoa, até de não ter roupa para trabalhar, porque daqui a pouco vai uns 2, 3 dias, e daqui a pouco abandona porque não tem passagem, não tem uma alimentação, não tem um calçado. Então, isso tudo mexe. Então, é importante, antes da gente encaminhar o mercado de trabalho, ver essa questão jurídica, porque muitas vezes saem do sistema penitenciário por conta de uma pena, mas eles estão respondendo uma outra. Eles estão, como é que agora me fugiu a palavra certa, mas eles estão recorrendo a uma outra situação e acaba daqui a pouco eles estão lá bem belo trabalhando e tipo e vem a pena de outro crime que eles cometeram. Então é importante ter alguém que trabalhe essa questão judiciária, que cuide dessa questão, que possa escutá-lo, que possa ir lá ver processo por processo, para que nós possamos encaminhá-lo para o mercado de trabalho. Porque não adianta o cara estar lá, ele não está bem psicologicamente, daqui a pouco sai, não volta mais, briga, volta para as drogas, vê essa questão social, que às vezes o cara está lá, mas daqui a pouco se sente inferior pelo fato dele não ter um calçado, pelo fato dele não ter uma alimentação, pelo fato dele não ter o contato com os filhos, com os pais, os irmãos, isso acaba mexendo muito com ele. E a questão jurídica, né? Para que a gente possa entender que daqui a pouco o cara está lá firme, forte, dentro da empresa, trabalhando, tipo, e vinha uma condenação de um crime que ele cometeu que está que tá em recurso. Então, todas essas questões a gente precisa ver, entender, para que nós possamos encaminhar para o mercado de trabalho, porque às vezes a gente está queimando um cartucho, a gente está deixando de passar outra pessoa que está em condições e a gente não consegue porque a gente colocou alguém que foi 2, 3 dias, que foi um mês e depois não foi mais. Então, todo esse acompanhamento é importante ter. Todo esse acompanhamento desses 3 profissionais é importante ter para que nós possamos dar andamento e poder ter sucesso, porque às vezes é difícil, porque assim como eu estou escutando aqui na África do Sul, em Cape Town, na República Tcheca, é importante nós conseguirmos parcerias, pessoas, empresários, instituições, tanto privadas quanto estaduais, que, que aceitem egressos do sistema prisional. E nós queimando esse cartucho, a gente acaba. É difícil a gente conseguir um. E daqui a pouco está perdendo esse parceiro por conta, às vezes, de um cuidado nosso que é importante que nós possamos ter, seja no Brasil, seja na África do Sul, seja na República Tcheca, seja nos Estados Unidos. Esse cuidado é importante ter. E aqui nós criamos uma oficina, e também, em outro momento, eu gostaria de compartilhar com vocês, que é uma oficina que todos os egressos que vão passar pelo nosso escritório, eles vão ter que participar, vão ter que estar nessa oficina e participar dessa oficina. Porque essa oficina ela trata de questões que mexem com todos os egressos, né? E que é importante a gente falar, discutir e conversar a respeito. E antes de eu montar essa oficina, eu estudei muito, fui atrás, pesquisei, para que nós pudéssemos ah, saber do que nós estávamos falando, né? Então a gente começa a oficina falando sobre histórias de vida, começo contando a minha história de vida. O que então, tipo, passei pelo sistema penitenciário, vivi toda essa situação, como eu cheguei até aqui, sabe? Então começo contando a minha história de vida, a história de vida de Rodrigo Sabiá, mas quem vai estar dando a oficina que vai contar a sua história de vida para que as pessoas, os egressos que estão participando, eles possam se sentir pertencentes, eles possam se sentir à vontade para que eles possam contar a história de vida deles. Depois a gente fala sobre sonhos, né? Porque muitos acreditam que estão lá dentro e eles acreditam que, tipo, não está mais em tempo, não tem mais como sonhar por uma vida melhor, como algo que eles querem para suas vidas, como algo que eles acham correr atrás do sonho. Eu falo que, tipo, cara, eu estou com 41 anos, eu estou realizando sonhos, meus sonhos. Então é importante que a gente fale sobre sonhos, a gente fale sobre paternidade. Muitos nunca tiveram contato com o pai, então nunca conseguiram ter essa abertura, sabe? Nunca tiveram, isso vai passando de geração para geração. É importante a gente falar sobre paternidade, enfim, outros sobre violência contra a mulher, sabe? E se a gente for falar sobre, principalmente o que eu falo por experiência própria aqui dentro do sistema penitenciário brasileiro, muitos acham, não entendem o que é os tipos de violência, que acham que às vezes é só a violência física, mas tem a violência psicológica, a violência, enfim, outros tipos de violência que a gente precisa entender e tratar e discutir com essa galera. Enfim, então são tantas coisas que a gente precisa falar e discutir para que nós possamos inserir o egresso dentro de volta à sociedade, entender essas questões.
Thank you so much. And I love how you started talking about some of the things that we need to be providing in order to support people in their reentry and reintegration journey, that are not just those material things, which are obviously very important: housing, job support, etc. But really deeper wraparound support services, and the opportunity for people to share their story, to be heard. And we, at the Petey Greene program, we often talk about centering incarcerated people as human beings, and just recognizing the humanity of the people that we are dealing with in a system that is designed to oftentimes dehumanize people. So it really sounds like there are a lot of points of convergence, like you said, across different countries and across our efforts to change systems across our countries. I want to pause for a second for a technical question that is coming up a lot in the chat. So if you are an English speaker and you are not hearing Giovanna's translation when Rodrigo speaks, so if you hear Rodrigo speaking in Portuguese, it means that you have not activated the interpretation and translation feature on Zoom. So you need to do that. At the bottom of your screen, there is you can see different boxes. One of them has an image of the word. If you click in there, you'll see listen in, and you can choose between original audio, which is probably what you have if you're not hearing the interpretation, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. You need to choose English. You will still be able to hear everybody when they speak in English, but then you will also, in addition, be able to see the people, the translation for Rodrigo. And we just put in the chat screenshots of how to do that, what that should look like in your on your screen. So thank you, everybody. Hope that you can you can see what you can see. You can hear what we're saying, moving forward. But bringing us back to the conversation that we were having, we talked a lot about the challenges, and we started talking about some of the things that we know that work, and the things that we need to make sure that we are doing to support people in reentry. And I'd love for everybody to expand on that. Maybe bringing us an example of something that your organization is doing, a specific program or an initiative that you see working very well and addressing a gap in the in the landscape of reentry in your countries.
Thank you, Shiara, again. Just to highlight one of the programs that I felt that was working, especially in my previous employer, which is the Message Trust. We used to have a work readiness program, which encompasses what Rodrigo was talking about in terms of the holistic approach in developing or in empowering someone that comes out of incarceration. After that program, they will go and do a barista training, which is a skills training now. Because we are also running, we had a coffee shop called Gangster Cafe. So that Gangster Cafe is run by formerly incarcerated individuals. When you go and buy coffee there, you would be served by formerly incarcerated individuals. Even in the kitchen, whoever that is going to prepare your food is someone that has gone through our training to be in that coffee shop. And also we were working with MT to go and also speak with other establishments, other coffee shops, other food outlets to give chance to our trainees because we can vouch for them because they've gone through the program. We understand better their psyche and how they could perform in those establishments. Or in Philippi Village, we had an element of inclusivity where we wanted that the small businesses that are there, they are able also to give chances to guys that are coming out of prison. But I must say, there was a pushback, a lot of pushback, which is what we've been talking about, the acceptance of society of people with a record, and the trust, and also the ableness for them to give them chance and we're trying even now, the work that I'm doing is to try and sensitize them and advocate for that. They usually throw stats in terms of people that have committed crime, but they don't throw stats for people that have not that have been in incarceration and came back home and that they've never committed a crime. If you are saying a person that commits a crime impact 10 people, why don't you say a person that comes home and not commit crime also impact 10 people? So we need to make sure that the community understand that by helping people that comes out of incarceration and to reintegrate into society and to be part of the society and to use the lived experience that they have to be in the forefront of the social ills that we are seeing here in South Africa and in the globe will also impact positively in the livelihood of our society. Yes.
Absolutely. I love how you frame that we always think about the negative consequences of committing a crime, but what about the positive consequences of not committing a crime, right? And having formerly incarcerated people be active participants in our society. It's so important. It's important for them, but it's really important for us as a society as well. We lose a lot by continuing to exclude people who have a wealth of experience that they can share. And from so many different perspectives, there are clear societal benefits to ensuring that people have a path to successful reentry. Here in the US, there are a lot of studies showing that, for example, for every dollar that you invest in education, as a country, you're saving $5 in the cost of reincarceration and persecution, etc. So I'm always interested in how you can make the case for reintegration and for a more inclusive society from a lot of different perspectives. That there is a perspective of really centering people's rights, which I think it's important for us to remember, always to consider. But there are also more pragmatic ways of making that same case.
Also,
yeah.
just to add on what you just said now, MT mentioned that we are also big on education in incarceration, especially people empowering themselves while they are still inside, so that when they come out, they come home, they are able to look into the opportunities that are there or create opportunities themselves. That's why I'm always, because the science is always, they always throw science into us, that the stats says, the stats that, and we here in South Africa, we know that people that have studied inside and they've furthered their studies in the university studies, only less than 3% of them that goes back to incarceration, while the general population, the recidivism stats shows that close to 70% of people go back to prison that they were. So you see the positivities in the work that we are doing, but what I've noticed was every time we share a spotlight into the education in incarceration, the comments, they're always negative from society. That's why we need to conscientize them to understand why are we pushing for this education in incarceration. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as the Petey Greene program, we are also deep believers in the importance of education. And again, from a human rights perspective, because education is also a human right that you don't lose just because you commit a crime or because you're incarcerated, but also from a practical perspective, because it generates benefits for not just for the person who's incarcerated, but for the entire society. And it's remarkable, the statistics that you quoted for South Africa are almost identical for the US, with 70% reincarceration rate as a general rate, and then falling dramatically below 5% for people with the bachelor's degree, and it's actually basically zero for people with a master's degree. So we really see that that impact. Jan and Rodrigo, want to leave space for you as well to talk about some of the initiatives and the things that you see working in your countries and in your organizations.
Thank you for that. Actually, I wanted to say something similar as Indira just did, but now I have to think for the new one. But for your question about this team, what I like the most, what we do, it's also we actually in our organization we also do the training jobs for the clients who can many times happen that they became employer. Being also almost 30% of our employees are the ones with lit experience. And what touched me the most, that all these people with or without experience in my organization, they all together make such a good environment for the ones who are new. That I just said it a couple of weeks ago, that for the first time when I started to work in Rubicon, I felt that I'm accepted as a whole person as I never felt before, never ever in my life, and it was really something special for me. And because often happens, at least it was in my case, that even though that I had some work that I did, or I had place to sleep, you know, when I get out from jail, I had nothing. I had no money on account. I've got debts. I've got no social background. I have no friends. So you know, even through that, I felt really, and it was really hard for me to start to talk to new people, because I felt still ashamed for what I did in my past. And it really took some time to when I was surrounded by such good people in Rubicon, that I started to feel good, and I had enough confidence to talk to new people, you know, like a regular person. So yeah, that's the stigma that we are also bringing with ourselves when we get out of jail.
Thank you, and I I agree on the importance of, like we were saying at the beginning, right? Engaging people who are informally incarcerated as leaders in the work that we're doing, and how the environment that is created, that inclusive environment, is really essential for, again, for others who are coming on, but I would argue for people who are not formally incarcerated as well. They really benefit from being a part of a more inclusive environment, and an environment where different voices and are expressed, and where people with a variety of backgrounds can feel and be themselves, and recognize themselves. So. Rodrigo, anything else to add? I would love to hear about maybe one specific initiative that you are running, or something. One thing I know you talked a lot before about making space to hear people's stories in their fullness, which ties very well with what Jan just said. But just spotlight something that you're doing that you think it's really working well.
Então, hoje, como eu falei antes, nós estamos com o nosso espaço, né? Ainda não inauguramos, mas já está funcionando. E uma das nossas maiores preocupações que nós estamos tendo e buscando é uma parceria com alguma empresa. Dentro do sistema prisional aqui do Rio Grande do Sul, é o estado onde eu moro e atuo, existem 2 ou 3 penitenciárias onde empresas têm o seu espaço dentro dessas penitenciárias e os presos, eles trabalham. Quem está preso trabalha lá dentro, os internos trabalham lá dentro. E quando esses caras saem, eles não têm, eles perdem esse elo, esse contato com as empresas. Então, hoje, semana passada, eu me reuni com uma dessas empresas para que elas possam ser os nossos parceiros e possam dar continuidade, né, da porta de saída para essas pessoas. Então, hoje a gente está buscando uma parceria com uma dessas empresas, que é uma empresa de calçado, renomeada aqui no Rio Grande do Sul e no Brasil, muito conhecida, que usufrui da mão de obra prisional, mas que eles possam dar continuidade para quando esses caras saem, para que eles possam ter oportunidade. Então, a gente está tentando buscar essa parceria junto a uma dessas empresas, sentamos com uma delas agora, para que nós possamos encaminhar todos os egressos que passarem pelo nosso escritório, que eles possam ter a oportunidade de trabalhar dentro dessa empresa. Não só os que trabalharam dentro do presídio, mas também os que saem, que não tiveram a oportunidade de trabalhar junto com essas empresas dentro do presídio, mas os outros que de outros presídios possam ter a oportunidade de trabalhar quando eles saem, né? E a gente vê e acha que é muito importante nós termos, a nossa instituição ter uma parceria com uma empresa dessa, para que possamos encaminhar todos os egressos que passam pelo nosso escritório para uma oportunidade de emprego, para que eles possam ter um local para trabalhar, que nós mesmos possamos encaminhá-los e nada mais justo que seja uma empresa que já vem trabalhando, né, dentro do sistema penitenciário, já conhece as demandas, porque hoje eles treinam um rapaz e gastam com esse rapaz dentro de uma penitenciária, mas não dão uma oportunidade para esse rapaz quando ele sai. Então é importante essa parceria para que possa dar oportunidade para esse rapaz quando ele sai, né?
Thank you. What a great example, and I'm so glad that you brought up this question of labor and the way in which labor is used inside the correctional facilities. We have the same, very similar issues here in the U.S., where a lot of companies are employing people who are currently incarcerated. The wages, I think the average wage for an incarcerated person as of Like the most recent data was less than $1, like 57 cents per hour. So those are very exploitative wages, to say the least. And so prison labor contributes significantly to the economy. It contributes to the profits of those of companies, private companies, as well as some public ones. But then once people are released, they are not able to be working for those very same companies. And so we started talking about the stigma of around employing people who are formerly incarcerated, but for some reason employ that same person when they were incarcerated, and you could pay them less than $1 per hour. That was fine. So that is really a situation that we are, I think it's intrinsic to the way in which correctional facilities work in the US, and it sounds like it's also in other countries as well. Yeah, Rodrigo. Rodrigo, did you want to say something?
Da questão da educação, né? Hoje aqui bom, eu moro num estado e muito preconceituoso. Tem um amigo até que mexe, que é o Mississippi Gaúcho. E então todos os tipos de preconceito aqui no meu estado são bem maiores. E nosso governo, ano passado, ele postou que muitos egressos eles têm feito faculdade, têm se feito vestibular, desculpa, para se inscrever em faculdades. E eles passam nesse vestibular, então a questão de ensino dentro do sistema penitenciário gaúcho é muito forte. Mas e outra questão, quando esses caras saem, eles saem prontos, estão fazendo uma faculdade, para entrar numa faculdade, e existe esse preconceito por parte de algumas faculdades para aceitar esses egressos, e acho que precisa existir essa parceria, que é uma coisa que eu bato muito nessa tecla, entre o poder público e o privado. E nós, como instituições, nós temos que fazer essa ponte. E acho que é a mesma situação que todos confrontam em seus respectivos países, né? Mas nós temos que fazer essa ponte e quebrar esse paradigma. E para que isso possa funcionar de verdade entre o poder judiciário, o público e o privado. E essa corrente ela tem que existir. É muito difícil, eu falo por experiência própria aqui no meu país, no meu estado, na minha cidade. Mas se nós não fizermos isso, não tomarmos na frente, isso não vai existir, porque eles não se mexem para isso. E eu sempre falo, quando eu sento e quando eu vou falar em qualquer lugar, isso é questão de segurança pública, né? Porque a partir do momento que nós estamos dando oportunidade para essas pessoas, quando elas saem de dentro do sistema penitenciário, nós estamos quebrando um braço do crime. Nós estamos tirando alguém que mais ali à frente possa vir a cometer um crime. Nós estamos dando oportunidade. Isso é questão de segurança pública e a gente precisa bater nessa tecla. A gente precisa falar, porque eles gostam muito de falar, você está querendo tirar um cara ali, dar oportunidade para o cara que cometeu um crime. Não é só dar oportunidade, nós estamos mexendo na questão de um tema muito importante, que é a questão da segurança. E é isso que a gente deve falar, e é isso que a gente deve vender para essas pessoas, fazer com que eles entendam isso. Eles gostam de investir em armas, viaturas e presídios, mas que eles devem investir no ser humano, na questão da segurança, porque isso também afeta diretamente e indiretamente a segurança pública do meu estado, da minha cidade, do meu país, mas do estado da cidade de vocês também.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think that is the perfect segue to opening it up for questions from our audience. So I want to make sure that we leave some time. We could obviously continue talking about this for a very long time, and I would love to. But I want to make sure that we also make some space and some time for people who have been listening to us until now, to ask their questions. So as a reminder, please use the Q&A feature and not the chat feature to communicate with us and to ask questions. So we'll be monitoring the chat. Please feel free to chime in and ask questions. I saw during the webinar a couple of people raise their hands as well. We cannot unmute you and have you speak. So if you have thoughts, if you want to ask questions, really please use the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of your screen if you're wondering. But the first question that we got actually ties into what Rodrigo was saying. It's a broader question about how can we create a society where formerly incarcerated individuals are not just reintegrated, but truly embraced and valued, without relying on punitive systems that perpetuate cycles of harm, and instead fostering restorative, transformative justice that addresses the root causes of crime and support healing for all involved. I think if we had the answer to this question, the perfect answer, we would have solved 90% of the problems of the world. But just to start, I think this question gestures at something that has been coming up, that is the importance of system, like working at the system level and working to change systems rather than just working, or in addition to working to provide services, right? Because we can provide all the services that we want, but until we are really able to make an impact on at the systemic level, to change societies, to change perceptions, we will always be facing the same challenges. So was wondering what thoughts you have. Why is system work important and system change work important? What are your organizations doing in this regard? And I see Indira already already raising their hand, so please get us started.
Oh yes, I wanted to say, when I saw the question, and I'm thinking of the work that also INN is doing, is that the justice system reimagined, because it seems that what we are currently have is not working for the society. So we need to reimagine a new justice system that will embrace all what the audience that have written there in the Q&A. Also, I feel that we need to ask ourselves as society, does prisons do what we build them for? Are they still serving the society in whatever that we wanted, or whoever created prison system wanted it to be there in the first place? Because I feel all over the world, around the globe, people are complaining for the same things. And that needs us as a global community to sit down and look at other ways of dealing with the social ills that we have, because the social ills are there, but how are we going to deal with them? Because the systems that is there currently, we can see that it's not working. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And even going back to the question of reincarceration, which I don't think is necessarily the best measure for really anything. But even if we look at that, we have a system that is so expensive, and that, like we said, if 70% of people end up being reincarcerated, we have a very expensive system that is working 30% of the times. Like, nobody would keep that kind of system in any other field. So why are we really keeping it in this way? MT.
Thank you, Kiara. I like what Nira has been sharing, and Rodrigo and Jan, you know, as far as reintegration and also incarceration. And on the question that you asked earlier, that what is your organization is doing in terms of to sensitize the community about mass incarceration and reintegration, or the people that are coming out of prison. One of the things that we like to do at INN, we like to do like public facing events. You know, one of the conversations that we first dealt with was to fair chance hiring. That was the first event that we did, you know, to promote giving people that were in prison a second opportunity. And another one, it was about shit, I forgot now the name of this, but it's always a public facing event, because the reason why we're doing these public facing events is because we want people to understand that as much people fail, but sometimes people fail because of the failures of the community, you know, and because of the failures of the community, and they are hating to accept that we have failed as individuals. You know, we continue to have the similar problems from generation to generation. But once the community start to accept and embrace that, you know what, we as a community, we are retorted. We need to make or reorganize ourselves to make our communities right. And by so doing, that filters down to the generation that is coming. You know, we say in our African proverb, a leaf does not fall away from the tree. That means that, you know, what the tree is, the leaf is, you know, but it's just that it can be blown away. You know, so that's one of the things that we are doing. And another thing that we also do, and there are also touch, it's promoting education. So our partners are global, we're a global movement. So our partners are doing various activities of work in the space of integration, of prevention, and even housing. And we will always try to plug some of our comrades, you know, with some of these organizations that are doing a variety of works. And I think that the last time I checked, we had 132 partners, you know. So we are always focusing in the work of the person, not in the global work as global problems, you know, because we understand that the problems can be solved by people who are on the ground, and we just come and support that kind of a work. So that's how we try to solve the problems that we are facing in a global scale, but we focus locally.
Thank you. Yes, and I think that combination of addressing issues like locally while also coordinating globally is so powerful, because every time we have those conversations, we see so many commonalities across countries, across systems, but then the solutions are always rooted in the local context, right, and in the people that are there in those local contexts. And I think as some of you were talking about fair chance hiring and talking with like doing public events, etc. We have another question that asks, so how do you encourage collaboration with organizations that may not have traditionally engaged with formerly incarcerated people? How do you normalize opportunity by treating the person as a person instead of leading with them having a carceral record? Now, this is, I think, a great question that yeah, it just makes me think, you mentioned talking, like establishing those partnerships. What do you say to the, let's say, for example, to an employer to convince them to hire a formerly incarcerated person, or to establish a partnership with you as organizations working with formerly incarcerated people? Jan, do you want to start?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted actually to type an answer for this, just that question that you just now mentioned to that, I guess, lady. I hope I'm okay. So actually, what we do in Czech Republic, that we also we have two types of clients. First, of course, it's clients who came out of the prison, but we also take that our clients are the ones who employed our clients. You know, so I mean that big companies, etc. And we provide for them the individuals that we are sending to their factories or whatever kind of jobs it is, that we check with them. And that means that before we can send the formerly incarcerated person to that kind of job, we work with them. Our counselors work with them, have several meetings. They put together like CV. They checking if the depths, if they have, mostly they do, and also checking if there's some problems with the addictions. Then so, and of course, we trying to show them like good example. If there is somebody who employed our client is satisfied, of course we promote it as much as we can. And what we also do in our NGO, that I don't know how to say the word in English, but we do like if you hiring new employees, you have the thoughts, and we make that with the real employees, with the real HR persons directly in the prisons. So these people from the companies, from the business, came with us directly to the prisons, and going on one-on-one talks with the incarcerated persons. And actually many times happened that they love that individual so much that they, at the place, they offer them a job after they will be released. So that's, for example, what we do. And we have feedback from the HR people that they were really surprised. And of course, many times happened that the incarcerated individuals, you know, were too shy or nervous. It's completely normal. So the HR people gave them feedback how when it will be real, what to make better, and you know, how to succeed, let's say, in the job market, for example.
Thank you. That sounds such a great and really successful initiative. And I think it also speaks to, once you are able to foster that human contact, often I don't want to say that's enough to eliminate the stigma, but I think oftentimes when you are able to bring two individuals together, then you have better chances of the employer to really see what the incarcerated or formerly incarcerated person has to offer. And so I think that's just really important to foster that element of human connection, and then exposing also the people who are not incarcerated to the reality of what it means to be incarcerated, bringing them inside, allowing them to see the conditions of the prisons, and to meet some of the people that are there, because oftentimes we have so many biases and stereotypes in our minds, that then when we find ourselves in the situation, we're just that we see that it does not correspond to reality. Indira, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to chime in on this question, or anyone else?
Yes, I just wanted to add something that most of the people of the organizations and the employers that we were able to send people to, they were happy with the work because of most of the formerly incarcerated people, but they know of the chance. That chance only comes once. So when they get such chances and opportunities, they grab it with both hands. So we always get positive feedback from the employers of the people that we have sent them. One of the things that I've seen in the Q&A was talking about the mental health of people that are coming out of incarcerations. And in the organization where I worked at, especially the Message Trust, we had a social worker that was in-house. So every time a guy is going through stuff, they will have to go and speak with the social worker for their privacy and also confidence, confidentiality as well. Because we believe that a human being that has been caged for so long and coming back to society, there will be some sort of a mental health problems there and there, or to adapt into the society again. So they will need the hand of a professional to walk the journey with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. And since you mentioned social workers and this type of support, we have another question around how do your respective organizations offer mental health support to people who to ensure that people have a safe space to share their struggles and their stories. So I'm curious if your organizations, I think for Rodrigo, you mentioned mental health support, and what type of services do you provide in that area? Or more generally, how do you support people's mental health? Because we know that can be done through a variety. You can connect people with psychologists, but you can also support a positive environment. You can foster connection and community. So how do you support people's mental health in reentry?
Então, hoje a gente vem buscando parcerias junto às universidades, né? Onde é uma experiência que nós já tivemos em outros momentos e que nós estamos buscando e coletando hoje para para a nossa instituição. E essa parceria, ela funciona da seguinte forma: os alunos de serviço social e psicologia, eles fazem como trabalho de campo esse atendimento dentro da nossa instituição. Eles podem ser, a universidade oferece de forma voluntária, ou através, eles precisam de horas complementares, e eles vão lá e fazem esse atendimento para adquirir horas para a matéria deles. A gente vem buscando também uma parceria junto à Defensoria Pública do Estado, da União, para que eles possam fazer esse atendimento jurídico também, né? Então, o atendimento ele funciona de forma através de parcerias junto com universidades e também de forma voluntária de outras pessoas, parceiros e amigos que vêm fazer esse atendimento e também através da Defensoria Pública. Mas nós, mais adiante, queremos ter um profissional contratado por nós, psicólogo, um assistente social e um jurídico. E incluir também os voluntários e os parceiros das universidades para que eles possam fazer esse atendimento.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really incredible how you are utilizing a range of different partnerships to support the services that you're doing. And as an organization that works a lot with colleges and universities to recruit our instructors and tutors, I know that can be a great resource. And again, with benefits for both sides, for the university students who learn how the system works and gain exposure to the carceral system, as well as the incarcerated people. I am going to start wrapping us up. We are almost at time, and I want to make sure that we stay within the time. So, fellow panelists and MT, if there's any final thoughts that you want to share, anything that you really wanted to say today that you haven't had the opportunity to say it yet, this is the time. I think we said, sounds like we said enough, although again it would be great to be able to continue this much longer. So I just want to thank you all again, thank our audience as well for your attention and for all the great questions that you asked. So I will drop a few links in the chat. First of all, we have a survey that we'd love for everybody to complete. Would be great. I mean, while you're here, I encourage you to work on it right now. It's very quick, and I know that once we log off, we will forget to complete it. So we'd love to hear your feedback. Just a way helps us understand where you're coming from, so we know who we are reaching, and also what did you think about this event. If you have suggestions for other future events, we're always eager to hear about all of that. And I wonder if our panelists can also put links in the chat about their organizations. If you have whether it's an Instagram page or a website for your organization, how can people learn more about your work, and how can they support you as well? And as we do that, I will put the link for the Petey Greene program and the Puttkammer Center in case anybody is curious and wants to hear more about the work that we are doing at the Petey Greene program. And finally, I love how MT, you mentioned public events as an important part of the work that you are doing to change systems. And we know something about that at the Petey Greene program as well. We love holding public events. This webinar series is naturally one of them. I hope that people who engaged with us today are able to take some of the things that our panelists have shared and bring them with them. Talk about this with your friends, with your communities. It is so important for more and more people to understand the challenges of reentry, reintegration, to understand the carceral system and how it presents itself in different countries. So please spread the word. We have at the Petey Greene program, we have another one of we'll have another event. Part of the Justice Education series in March, so next month. Stay tuned for an event on ecology in carceral spaces in the US. And we also have our annual 5K run walk coming up in April. Thank you. So please, if you are in the US, and in particular, if you're in Boston, Philadelphia, Princeton, or Washington, DC, you can register, you can join us. We always have a great time running together for educational justice. We have tables, we partner with other organizations, so it's also an opportunity to learn about other organizations doing great work in this space in our communities. And what else? I think this is it. I will put the link to the 5K run walk and to our events in the chat as well. But otherwise, thank you everybody for coming again on behalf of the Puttkammer Center, Incarceration Nations, and all of us. We really appreciate engaging with you during those 90 minutes. Thank you to the panelists for sharing your stories and really your amazing work. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the next event. Thank you.
It was pleasure to be here.
Yeah. See you again next month.
For sure.
Obrigado.